Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Got an interesting little video for you today. As you can see spread out here in front of me, we've got some blanks a little bit on the smaller side. These would be pin turning blanks or things of that nature. So thought I would bring you along with me today, and what we're going to do is we're going to turn a pin and we're going to turn a ticket scratcher, like a little lottery ticket or something of that nature where you have to scratch off to reveal what's under it. Handy little device to do that. Keeps you from hunting around for loose change or using your fingernail. So I'm going to turn the pin out of basically wood. We just have to select our wood type that we want to have to go with the finish of the pin there. And then I think on the ticket scratcher, we're going to turn it out of an acrylic. So again, we're going to have to choose which acrylic color and design that we're going to want for our ticket scratcher. So give me just a second. I'll reposition the camera and we'll kind of go through what our options are and what the finishes will be on the finished products. And we'll see if we can't make a decision. Okay, now that we've got the camera set up where you can get a better view of what we've got going on, the pin kit that we're going to turn today is a Spartan click pin kit from PSI Woodworking Products, and the finish is going to be a gunmetal finish. So we just need to bear that in mind and pick a blank here that's going to pair well with a gunmetal finish. So got quite a few options here. We've got, this is a lacewood blank. Got a couple of those of light reddish colored wood. Let's see. We have here, this is, let's see, a piece of black limba is what it's referred to. That's kind of a nice little bit of a straight grain. We got some cottonwood. That's got some nice figure in it. I don't know how well that translates on the camera. That would make an interesting finish. Got a little bit of quilting and some very nice figure. Let's see, what do we got here? We got some silver maple. Another lighter wood. Got some pretty nice figure showing in it too. Let's see here. Want to go a little bit redder? We've got some African mahogany. This would be a nice piece. This is leopard wood. Got an interesting finish, almost like leopard spots. I've done a couple in this. This turns out really nice. So I don't know what we're thinking today. What kind of wood we want to use. There's so many options, so many different choices. Do we go lighter? Do we go darker? Do we do some sort of a hardwood burl, such as this right here? Do we do something relatively plain? A piece of bird's eye maple. This has got some nice patterning in it as well. So this is the hardest part to me in making a pen or a pencil, is picking out which type of wood you want to make it out of. So many different styles, so many different types of finishes. They turn out looking really, really nice. I don't think I've ever seen really a bad finish. It's just how do you decide? Which one do you pick? And in cases like this, I wish I could hear feedback from you guys in real time when we're doing this. Would make the process a little bit easier. Somebody to tell me, hey, let's try this one. I want to see this type of wood. So, it's like I said, decisions, decisions, decisions. Good news is there's no wrong decision. There's a lot of right decisions. So let's pick something relatively interesting. I am very, very interested in this cottonwood. That figure right there is just going to be absolutely gorgeous. So I think for the pen, for the Spartan pen, we're going to go with the cottonwood. So let's put that there aside. That's going to be our pick there. Now, all we've got to do at this point is pick what we want to do for our scratcher. We're going to do that, like I said, out of an acrylic. So again, choices. Got all kinds of just beautiful colors and beautiful patterning. And again, this is going to be a gunmetal finish as well. So we need to bear that in mind. So we've got a multicolored green here. I think actually the name on this, they refer to this as bullfrog. Interesting. This is a hybrid. This particular piece here is a hybrid of natural wood and acrylic. And I would have to look back through my records. I don't remember what kind of wood this is. It's been dyed and stabilized, and the acrylic has been poured in with it. So these turn out quite interesting too. I think today, though, I don't want to do a hybrid. I'd rather go a straight 100% acrylic just to show you the differences in finishing it versus finishing the wood. This is a interesting pattern. It's a black and white is the name of it. I've done a couple things out of this. When it's finished up, it has the appearance of a mother of pearl. Very, very beautiful. This is one of my wife's favorites. This is a black and white. It's called a black and white thread. This one, again, really, really spectacular. Then we've got various other colors as well. This one is actually labeled Mother of Pearl. Got several colors going on in it. So, I don't know. What does everybody think? I think I'm kind of leaning toward either one of the black and whites or the Mother of Pearl. What would you think? What do you think? How do we choose? How do we choose? Okay. Well, again, we can come back and do other colors on other days. So there's no right or wrong choice. But I'm thinking, let's try this Mother of Pearl. See how this turns out in this particular piece. So now that we've got our pieces chosen, I'm going to use the Mother of Pearl for the scratcher, and we're going to use the cottonwood for the pen. So now that we've got that picked out, that's the hard part. Give me just a few minutes and we'll go through the processing of these, because we have to shorten these blanks down to the length we need according to this brass tube here, and get everything set up. So give me just a minute to get that started, and I'll bring you back and we'll show you the process. Okay, got everything set up so we can start preparing our blanks for the turning. So the first thing we need to do is we need to mark out on the blank the length that it's going to be, because we're not going to use this whole entire piece. What we need is the length of the center tube, the insert. This blank needs to be just a little bit longer, roughly about 1/8 of an inch on either end than the tube. So I'm going to look at the blank first, see where I want my finished product to be. Do I want it to be here? Do I want it to be here? Or do I want it to be somewhere in the center? So usually what I look for when I'm doing this, I look to see where I can see the most figure or patterning in the grain or whatever, whatever I'm looking for that I think will be of the most interest. So in this case, as you can see, most of the figure seems to be in this end of the blank. So I think that's where I'm going to start at. I'm going to shoot for a finished product being somewhere right in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back up off this end, roughly about 1/8 of an inch or so. Now that doesn't have to be super, critical. I can be a little bit further away than 1/8. I just don't want to be under 1/8 if I can help it, because we have to square these ends up. And if we go too short, then we have to start all over again. So in this case, roughly about 1/8 just by eye down here on this end. So I'm going to come right here and I'm going to make a mark about 1/8 of an inch past the other end of the tube. And we'll square that up, get us a reference line here. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to put me a little X down on this end so I know I want this end, not this one, because sometimes you get to turning, you get over by the bandsaw to cut this off, and you look at it and go, wait a minute, which one did I want? So just going to mark that appropriately. I'll put that to the side. Now we'll get our acrylic blank. Same thing. We want to figure it out. Now on the acrylics, because of the way they're poured and made, there's really no wrong way. But again, I'm going to look at it and see, which end I think is going to look the best. So on this one, I'm thinking it's pretty consistent throughout. So I'm just going to start over on this edge, and that's mainly because I'm right-handed. It feels more natural to me. So let's put it up there. Leave myself about 1/8 of an inch. And down here, we're going to make a mark approximately 1/8 of an inch past the end of that tube. Same as before. Let's get us a reference line here with our square. Make sure we mark that good. Now this one, in the case of this, it's going to be rather obvious which end I'm going to be using. The tube is long, so don't really need to put an X on this end. That's going to be very, very obvious. Okay? Alrighty. So now that we've got them marked, we need to go over to the bandsaw and we need to cut them down to the size that they need to be. So give me just a moment. I'll get the camera moved and repositioned and bring you back, and we'll do that. Okay, over at the bandsaw, getting ready to cut our blanks down to size. We've got them marked, as you just saw. So I think we'll start with the cottonwood blank. So I've got a little fence here to help keep me straight and help me to hold on to the blank while we're cutting. So we'll get it in line here. And what I always do, even though I've marked 1/8 of an inch beyond that tube on this end, and you know I allowed 1/8 of an inch down here. So even though I'm 1/8 on both ends, I always cut on the opposite side of my line. I don't cut dead center of the line just in case the blade happens to wander a little bit. It shouldn't on a short piece like this, but just in case it does, I always cut on the offcut side of my line just to give myself a little extra to work with. Because we can always take wood away, but we can't put it back. Okay, so we're lined up there. Alrighty, got that one done. Now let's do the acrylic. Okay, now we've got both of our pieces down to size, so now we need to go to the next step, which is going to be mounting them on the lathe and drilling a hole in the center to match the corresponding size of our brass tube. So let me reposition the camera over to the lathe and I'll bring you back and show you this process. Okay, made it back over to the lathe. I have the cottonwood blank mounted up in the pin jaws here. I've got my Jacob's chuck in the tailstock here with a drill bit. This is a 3/8 bit, which corresponds to the size of the brass tube that's going to go into the center of this one. So we're all set up, and I've got the lathe down to its slowest speed. In the case of this particular one, the slowest speed is about 1800 RPM. So let's go ahead and we'll drill the hole through the center of this blank. Then we'll change bits, mount up the acrylic blank, and we'll do the same process. Okay, made it through on this particular one. And as you probably noticed as I was going along there, you want to back your drill bit out periodically and clean out all the built up chips, because if you keep going, you can get one hung up in here. And in extreme cases, you can actually get it started burning, set it on fire, and you don't want to do that. So got a good hole right down through the center. So we'll put this one to the side for the moment. We're going to change bits because the acrylic blank, that tube is going to require an 8mm bit. The wooden one used a 3/8 bit. So let's change out our drill bits and then we'll get started on the acrylic blank. Same process. However, on the acrylic, you'll notice we're going to go quite a bit slower because the acrylic and heat do not mix. And you definitely don't want to get too much heat built up in the acrylic blank. It will cause it to crack. The hole will become oblong if it doesn't crack. So there's a lot of different things that can happen. So you just got to take your time on the acrylics. Okay. Alrighty, here we go. Well, and as you see, sometimes, that's what I was talking about, it got stuck, but we did make it through. We made it all the way through to the end. We got it stopped in time. We didn't build up so much heat that we can't recover from that. And we came away without shedding any blood, so it's a good day. So give me just a minute. Let me get this pulled through. Now, the reason that one stuck like it did, I was right at the end of the travel of my tailstock, and there wasn't as much bit exposed to get quite all the way through, not as far as I'd like. And normally at this point, what I would have done, I would have stopped and switched this blank around and went in from the opposite end. So got a little bit overzealous there, but at least the good news is now you see what can happen. So let's go ahead and take this out, take a look at the other end, see how we did. I'll show you another reason why I give a little extra, especially on an acrylic blank. Yeah, it didn't do too bad. Came out quite nice. Okay, this is the end that we went in on. Okay, this was our entry cut, so it looks pretty good, nice and smooth. On the other end, I don't know if you can see it. See that piece of chip out right there? Now, that's the reason I leave a little extra, especially on acrylic, because acrylic is very bad about chipping out. Even if we had turned around and approached from this end before we went all the way through, you run a risk of getting quite a big bit of chip out. And if you don't leave that extra 1/8 of an inch on either end, when you go to square up the ends of these blanks after we get the tubes in, you might not have enough material left. Then this becomes a scrap blank. You have to try to use it for something else. So hopefully that explains why we leave a little extra on the ends. But this one turned out well despite our bit getting stuck right at the end. Okay, so next step is going to be take these two pieces that we've now drilled, and we have to install our brass tubes and glue those in place. So let me get the camera moved and bring you back and show you that process. Okay, back over at the bench, got everything set up so we can glue in our brass tubes into our two blanks here. So I'll show you this process real quick. Now, one thing that's important to know on these brass tubes, whenever you go to put these in and glue them, some of the pin kit manufacturers send the brass tubes just plain brass tubes, untouched. On those, you have to scuff the surface up so that the glue will have something to adhere to. So you would take a piece of sandpaper and rough up the outside of the tube. Now, this particular company, PSI Woodworking, they are nice enough that they send the tubes, if you can see that, they're already scuffed. So saves you a step. So very nice, very thoughtful of them. So just bear with me here and we'll get these glued in. Now you do tend to get glue all over your fingers, so I've got some little silicone finger covers here that I like to wear, because I do not like getting that stuff all over my fingers, because then you're peeling it off for days sometimes, so it can be rather aggravating. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take and apply our glue to the brass tube. And I'm using just a medium thick CA glue here. Now, I've seen other pin turners online. Guys will use all kinds of stuff. Some guys swear by 5-minute epoxy. They hate CA glue. You know, various reasons. I would say do what works for you. I've never had a problem using the CA. I've not lost a pen yet or a pencil yet to the CA. That's what I'm comfortable using. So that's what I use. But again, you do you. All right. So the trick is to get the tube in there, get it roughly centered before the glue starts to set. Sometimes that can be a little bit of a challenge. Now, as you noticed, and of course missed a finger, I should have put one on every finger. As you noticed, as I was inserting that tube, I was rolling it around to get the glue coated every area, in and out, to make sure we got it, situated all through there. So we've got that one in. I'll wipe off that little bit of excess on the end there. I'm going to give it a little shot of accelerator to help it set. Okay. A little bit in both ends. I'm going to set it to the side. Now we'll move on to the next one. Same process, just like you just saw. So let's just repeat this. And I've seen guys too, sometimes you'll have a little bit of this glue will accumulate in the end of the tube as you're getting it in the blank. I've seen guys put pieces of wax in the end of the tube to keep from having buildup. I've seen all kinds of different things there, which, hey, again, no right, no wrong. You do what works best for you. I've never had an issue with it, but I use a deburring tool to clean out the ends and the openings, and I'll show you that. So that's why I don't use the wax plug. I've never run into a problem with it. So let's give this a little spray of the accelerator. Set it to the side. All right, we'll give that a minute to set. I'll bring you back and show you the next step. Okay, we're set back up over here on the lathe now that we've got our brass tubes glued into our blanks. So the next step in the process, we've got to true up this end. We're going to square the blank, and that's what this piece here is for. This is called a pin mill. You have a guide here in the center, sized to the brass tube. It also has a little bit of a cutter on the end so that it'll help kind of deburr anything, get any glue out. But the main star is going to be this back piece here, which is a cutter that squares off the end of this blank. So I'll show you that process. Now on these, I always start with the mill inserted into the blank, and the reason I do that is because I don't want to risk messing up the end of the blank as I'm going in. So if I start with it in, I know it's true, then I can go ahead and square up the end and do the process without damaging anything. So let's get this started. I'll show you how this works. Okay. All right, so what we're looking for when we do that, we're squaring up the end of the blank, obviously, but also you got to remember that brass tube is in there, so we don't want to go too far. We don't want to start cutting into the tube, because this piece here will cut that tube, and if we start cutting into it, we're making our finished piece shorter, and it won't assemble correctly. So what you're wanting to do is go down just till you start to see it touch the end of that brass tube. It'll shine it up. It'll get it good and shiny. And I can see right now that I'm there. So let's go ahead and get this backed out. There we go. Now we can take it out and turn it around and do the other end. And I'll show you when I get it out what I'm talking about on that brass tube. Okay. Yep. See here? See how it's bright and shiny. So we're down to the tube. We've just barely started to clean up that end. So that's where we're going to stop. So now we'll turn it around and do the other end. Same thing, I'm going to go ahead and get it started so I don't mess up the end of the tube. Okay. Okay. Alrighty, got down to that one as well. And there we go. Just got the end of the tube shined up on each end. Now, as you can see, it's kind of rough there, just a little bit. You can probably tell by the picture. So that's where this deburring tool comes in handy. Stick it in, give it a couple rounds, cleans up that edge. There we go. So now this one is ready to turn. So before I start on that, we're going to do the same process on the acrylic blank. I'm going to have to do a tool change real quick because this is a smaller tube, remember, so we have a different end mill. So give me just a second. Let me get this changed out, and we'll be ready to repeat that process. Still got a little bit to go. Sometimes these can be a little hard to see. Need to get another light over here. There we are. Okay. Yep. Perfect. All right. And that is that. Show you here. See that end of that tube's nice and shiny. So now we're flat and square on both ends, on both blanks. So go ahead and run the little deburring tool in here a couple turns. Okay. Now we are ready for turning. So give me just a minute. Let me get everything changed out and set up. I'll bring you back and we'll start turning. All right, got everything set up. We've got our attachments here for mounting. This is a pin mandrel. I've got some spacers here. Now the spacers that you see right on the end closest to the blank, these are our size guides. These are specific to the particular pin that we're making, so this is where we want to end up on our finished product on each end so that everything fits together nicely. So in the center here, we can do whatever we want. If we want to dish it out in the center, we can. If we want a little bit of a belly in the center, if we want any kind of a decorative feature in the center, we can do that as well. Or you can turn it just a straight even cylinder the whole way. It's up to you. It's just whatever your creative license that you feel like doing. So the main thing is, for the case of for the purpose of everything fitting together nicely, you just want to have these ends match the diameter of these bushings. So let's get started. Let's make something square round. Okay, we are getting very, very close now. I failed to mention just a minute ago, even though these bushings are what you're shooting for, you want to leave the diameter of the blank just a little bit larger than the bushing to allow for sanding. so that when you sand, then you wind up at your finished diameter. Now, this particular pen kit type, this is it's referred to as a Spartan Click pen. It's a very beefy pen kit, so on those, rather than turn just a straight diameter cylinder, I like to leave a little bit of a belly in the middle to give it a little bit more more heft here, more of a grip. So I'm satisfied with the way this is looking in the overall shape. So now it's time to do a little sanding. So we're going to start sanding here at 180 grit, and then we'll step up through the grits. Usually on these, depending on the species of wood, whether it's a harder wood or a softer wood, and what kind of finish I'm going for, determines how high in the sanding process I go. So at this point, on this particular species, we're going to go up to 320, and then we'll see where it's at and if we feel the need to go any higher. Okay, that's coming out really, really nice. We've got a little bit of grain tear out right here, so we're going to need to address that. But one thing you also need to do in your sanding, especially on pens, because you're sanding a small diameter in a continuous circle, as you're sanding, you're going to leave concentric rings around it. So in between each sanding grit, you want to go longitudinally as well to get those sanding circles, those little concentric circles, off of the blank. Okay. Okay. See how we're doing there. I'm going to hit that just a little bit more. Okay, let's see how this looks. That's looking nice. We still got a little bit of tear out right here at this edge. We're going to have to address that. Still got a little bit of room there, so I think we can make it. And you want to continuously be moving. You don't want to stay in one spot on these because you'll build up heat. And certain wood species, heat will cause them to crack. So we want to keep moving as we go. We don't want to stop. And one other thing you want to be aware of when you're doing these, when you're sanding, you want to try not to sand onto your bushings any more than you absolutely have to. Because what will happen is you'll get metallic shavings in the form of dust, and in some cases that'll transfer into your wood and it'll discolor it. So we're looking good right there. I think that's enough with the 180 grit. We'll go up to 240 next and continue on. All right, see how that's looking. Yeah, that's looking very nice. Very nice indeed. Okay. Little spot right there. See if we got that out, and we did. Okay. Now we'll go up to 320. It's looking very good. Very good. Okay, so I think 320 is going to get us the finish that we need. So what I'm going to do now is use a little bit of denatured alcohol to clean this up a little bit, and it'll also raise the grain. We'll do one more sanding at 320, and then we'll start on the acrylic blank. Okay. Now that one is going to be ready for the finishing process. On this one, we're going to do a CA finish. So let me get set up. We'll go ahead and do that. And then while that's setting and curing, we'll go ahead and do our acrylic blank. So give me just a minute. Let me get everything set up to apply the CA finish. I'll bring you back and we'll do that. Okay, got everything set up for applying the CA finish. So what I've changed out here is the bushings on either end here, the metal ones that you saw for sizing. We don't want to use those for finishing because the CA glue will stick the blank to the bushing. Then you got a whole nother problem. So for finishing with CA glue, you have nylon bushings that the CA won't stick to permanently. So that's what I've done. I've just switched out. Got my nylon bushings in here. I've got a piece of cloth here covering up the bedways on the lathe. We don't want to get anything there. I've put on my apron and I've got my face protection on. So now we're going to go ahead and start finishing. We do this in multiple coats and you'll kind of see the process. I probably won't show you each and every coat because there's, depending on the way it's finishing out, the way it's laying down, there could be as few as 5 coats to as many as 12 to 15. And it's the same thing, just takes up a lot of time. So I'm going to show you the first couple coats, and then I'll pause the video and I'll bring you back and show you the final coat, and then show you how we finish it from there. Okay, there's the first couple coats. So just building up a base layer. So we're going to get that built up to where we got a little bit of thickness. So whenever we start our finish sanding, we won't sand all the way through the CA finish back down to the wood. We don't want to do that. And as we keep going, and once we get done and it's cured, and we go to the finished sanding process, that'll give it a high gloss shine. So exactly what you've seen, I'm just going to continue to do that until I'm satisfied we've got enough built up and that the layer is relatively smooth. And then I'll bring you back and show you the rest of the process. Just wanted to bring you back real quick, folks, and show you something real quick. Now, I did this on purpose. Whenever you're doing a CA glue finish, you don't want to fold your towel that you're applying with up like this, and you definitely don't want to throw this in the garbage. Now, I've folded it like this to make it easier for me to handle, and I'm not going to throw this in the trash can because I don't know if you could see it. There was smoke coming off of it. This will, through a chemical reaction, cause a similar form of, like you would say, spontaneous combustion. These will start a fire. So you do not want to put these in your trash can when you're done. You want to open them up, lay them out flat, and dispose of them that way, because these will cause a fire if you're not careful. So just wanted to bring you back and show you that little tidbit. I did that on purpose just to show you. Okay, folks, got you back here. We've got our CA applied. It's now dry. This is about 12 coats, I believe, of CA on there, if I counted right. So we're up to the point now we want to start finishing. So for that, what we're going to do is start sanding. And this is all be wet sanding on this CA finish. And we're going to start out with 400 grit. And we're going to work our way up through the grits all the way up to 12,000. So just bear with me. You'll see what that process looks like. I'm going to speed the lathe back up. Get some speed on here so we can get a smooth finish. Now what we're doing here, smoothing everything out. I don't know how well this translates on camera, probably not pretty good since my finger's in the way. But what we're doing with this wet sanding, we're developing a slurry on here. So this is what we want to see. We want to see this slurry occur on our sandpaper or sanding pads once we get in the higher grits. And that's what we're using to sand and polish the surface. Okay? And same as before when we were sanding the wood, we don't want to build up a lot of excess heat. If we do, now that we've got the CA finish applied, it'll actually cause it to crack. So we want to make sure and keep the blank or the finished piece relatively cool as we go. That's the reason why we're using water to keep everything cool. Okay. All right. So take a look here. It's looking good. So I think we're done with the 400 grit. We're going to step up to a 600 now. Same process. All right. Get a clean towel here. Wipe it down. Let's see what we've got. See how we're doing. It's looking good. Coming out nice. All righty. So now that we've got 600, our next grit up is going to be 1500. And that's accomplished with some sanding pads or color-coded sanding pads. I've been using these quite some time. I'm about ready to replace them. They're color-coded. This brown one here is 1500, and they step up through the grits 300 grit at a time. for the first half. Then they start jumping by about 2,000 grit per pad. So I'm going to show you the first couple of these, and then I'll pause the video and go on through, because it's the same exact process, and I won't bore you with every little step of it. It looks identical at each aspect. Okay, that was 1,500 grit. Now we're going to 1,800 grit. All right, and we're going to keep going like that. Like I said, I'll bring you back right toward the end, but you can already see, I don't know how well it's translating on camera, but we're already starting to build up a shine. And the finish is nice and smooth, but the higher we go in the grits, smoother that finish will be, and the more glossy of a shine we'll wind up with. So let me go on up to the next grit, which is going to be 2,400. And like I said, I'm not going to bore you with all the details. I'll bring you back when I get to the final grit, which will be 12,000. Okay, everybody, I've made it up. This will be the final grit. This is 12,000 grit, so I came up through all the other grits as I discussed earlier. So show you this just final, and this thing is shining very, very nicely. And there we are. That is a CA finish applied and sanded all the way up through 12,000 grit. Now you can also buff this depending on how it looks and if you want to. Now this has got a good enough shine. I don't believe this one's going to need buffing, not for my taste anyway. But that is a possibility. I do have that set up and that system for certain blanks. I do occasionally buff those. But I believe this one's going to be nice just the way it is. So let me get this one off and get it sitting over on the bench, and it can just kind of hang out, and we'll go ahead and get chucked up, and we will turn that acrylic blank. So let me get that process done, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, back with our acrylic blank all set up in the chuck. Same type setup here. We've got the bushings that are the final size we want to get to at the end. This one's a little different. On the previous one, on the wooden one, both those bushings were the same size. On this one, this bushing here is slightly larger than this bushing here. It gives it a little bit of a natural taper, or you could put some kind of a decorative bead on the end, whatever, you know, again, whatever you prefer. But this one should run in a slight taper to the other one. It'll be larger on this end than it will on this end. So got it all chucked up. Everything's good to go. I've got fresh edge on my gouge. That's very important when you're working with acrylic. You want to have your tools very, very sharp, because this stuff will chip out very easily. And in some cases, it can ruin your entire blank. So let me get a face shield on, and then we will start turning this one down. Okay, let's take a look, see how it's coming out. Looking pretty good. We've got it round at this point. And I don't know, you probably can't see it. It's hard to see even with the naked eye, much less on camera. But this stuff tends to break out in little chunks. That's why you have to be very careful. You got to go very slow, and you have to have very sharp tools. You can't rush this process. So you kind of see the basic way we're going here. I'll probably wind up pausing the video a little bit, because if not, this is going to be very long because I have to go quite slow on this. So I'll get it down closer to the final shape, and I'll bring you back and show you what it looks like. Okay, folks, here's a good example of what can happen. This is our acrylic blank. As you can see here, we had a fairly large piece break out of it. So there's our brass tube exposed. Now, I did find the pieces that come off. There they are right there. Kind of like a big jigsaw puzzle. Now this one fits back in quite well. So does one of these here. So I'm going to try to get them all back in place, get them glued up good. I don't know if I'm going to be successful or not, but I'll give it a try, and I'll bring you back and let you know how it turned out. Okay, here's what we're going to attempt to do, folks. I got the larger pieces glued in. They turned out quite nicely, but didn't have enough for everything. These are the smaller pieces. I've crushed those up. I've got this end cut. Remember, we had to shorten that blank when we began. I'm going to nibble a little bit off the end of here with the saw, get some fine powder, mix it with this, and attempt to try to glue it back on and build it up. We need just a little bit at the end of the tube. Let me show you what we're dealing with, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So here we go. We got all the large pieces in, so that took care of most of it. I've just got this little bit right there and that little bit right there, and I didn't have any pieces large enough that would fit the way they should. So again, I'm going to try to take this, cut it down to something that I can crush and grind up to resemble that, and then see if we can't come up with something. Okay, I'm back for a little update. So show you what I did. Show you where we started there. We got the large pieces glued in like I previously stated. So we're just trying to cover up those last few little pieces there. So I managed to cut off a little piece of the end of that excess part of the blank. And I put it back in the cap here from my CA accelerator bottle so I could contain it. And to keep everything from flying out when I try to crush it, I had some of these latex finger protectors. These are another method you can use to keep glue off your fingers when you're gluing things up. So I took one of those, stretched it out, put it over the cap, cut the end off. And that allowed me to take one of my punches, which is a pin press punch, stick inside here. So now I've got all of the pieces captured. And then I just put it down on the bedways of the lathe where I had a solid surface and used a mallet and just tapped. Kept tilting the cup up, make sure everything was under the punch, and just went around tapping. So now that I've got that, I'll go ahead and remove this finger protector, and we are left with fine dust and chips. So now I'm going to see if I can't glue this onto that tube and salvage this blank. So let me work on the glue up. I'll bring you back shortly. Okay, got the glue up all done. I know it looks terrible right now, but I believe we're going to be able to salvage it, hopefully, if we're careful. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to immediately start to turning this, even though it's pretty well set up. I'm going to sand this first and get it down close, and then we'll get back to turning, because if I start turning it now, I'm afraid it's going to catch one of these bigger areas and just rip it clean off. So I want to try to avoid that if possible. So I'm going to do some sanding on it, and we'll see what happens from there. So let me get set up for that. I'm going to actually use my drill with a 2-inch sanding pad to start on the side here that really protrudes. And then once I get down closer, then I'll switch over to sanding by hand like we did earlier. So let me get set up and I'll bring you back. Okay, got my drill, got my 2-inch sanding pad. This is 80 grit, so we'll start with that, see how this turns out. Okay, I think I've got the high spots knocked down enough now. I can go back to sanding with the lathe on. Little spot right there. See if we can't recover from this disaster. So, let's see. Okay, we'll start off here with 180. Okay, looks like it's coming back around, so I'm going to switch over and wet sand a little bit. We don't want to build up too much heat, as I had stated earlier, especially with all the repair that we've done on this particular piece. So let's do a little wet sanding. Right. I believe we are going to recover from this. So, still got more to do. I still don't want to really put the turning tools in this area. So I think I'm going to continue to sand that as opposed to turning it down, because I don't want to run the risk of catching anything here that I've repaired and ripping this back off. Okay. So you see what the process is. I'm not going to bore you with that. I'll keep going, and I'll bring you back when we get closer to a finished piece. All right, folks, back for an update. I've sanded up through 600. I've still got to sand with the color-coded micro mesh pads. However, wanted to bring you back and show you that our repair here worked. It glued in good. It sanded out nicely. So I'm satisfied with that. So as we did before with the wood piece, we're just going to sand with the color-coded pads there, which again will get us from 1500 grit all the way up through 12,000. So same process as before. I won't bore you with the whole thing. I'll show you the beginnings of it, bring you back to show you probably the 12,000 grit sanding, and then we'll go from there. Okay, we made it up through the grits. We're up to 12,000 grit now. And there is our finished result. That came out very, very nice. Can't even tell we had a problem down here on this end. That finished in really, really good. So I'm pleased with the way that looks. That's one thing too that I like about the acrylics like this. You don't have to do any type of finish over the top of the acrylic. All you need to do is just sand it up through the appropriate grits, and it'll develop a hard surface and a shine just from that. So, all right, that takes care of the turning. We recouped from our problem there. We've got one more step to do on the wood piece for the pin, and then we'll be ready for assembly. So let me get everything switched around, ready for that, and I'll bring you back and show you the assembly process. All right, got everything set up for assembling our pin and scraper. So this is a pin press. This is a spring-loaded nylon, so it won't mar the pieces that you're pressing in. It's also got a hole here located in the center for centering tips and things of that nature, and this is an anvil. So first thing we're going to do on this one here is we're going to take, this would be the tip end toward the writing point, so we're going to press that in first. Now on this one, because it's the same on both ends, it doesn't matter which end you pick. And again, usually I look and see which way I think looks more interesting versus what I want to show, because this will have a clip, so a clip will hide a portion of it. So in this case, this end here looks to be the nicest as far as the grain configuration to me. So I'm going to make this the end that's easiest to see. So what we're going to do is line this up. Got it roughly centered here. And we are just going to press it in. There we go. All right. So there's that end all pressed into place. Everything looks good. Don't see any gaps. It's the right size, so that's good. Now, next step is we're going to put the clip end in place, which looks like this on this particular one. I'm going to slide it in, and I'm going to turn it so that my clip is where I want it to be. So I think in this case, the grain over here is pretty well straight. Not a whole lot of figure, so don't mind if I cover that up. That way that leaves this nicely figured area here exposed. So now we're going to do the same thing. Just press it in until it seats. That looks good there. So now we've got it both ends pressed in. Okay. So the next step in this one, we want to take our pin refill, which we have our spring over the end. Going to drop it in the open end. I'll turn it around until it seats properly. Okay. Then we're going to take our tip, slide it over the top, and thread it in. Okay. All right. Then on the other end is our plunger. And we're going to thread it in. Okay. Make sure we got everything in there properly. Sometimes you got to fiddle with it a little bit to get it to drop into place. Okay. And there we go. Okay. All right, let's get the scraper done. Give me just a second and let me grab the pieces. Okay, we're ready to do the scraper on the acrylic. So on this particular one, remember there was a larger diameter end, a smaller diameter end. So we have a cap here, little cap with a clip. That goes into the smaller diameter end. So we're going to do that first. Okay. Now that we've got that done on that end, now we have a retaining piece to go in here. It's a little bit more difficult to get in, so give me just a second. Let me get set up for that, and I'll show you how that works. Okay. Now what we have to do is we have what's called a spring clip retainer, which is this piece here. This has to go into the opposite end of the piece. Now the trick is to this, as you can see, it's kind of half round here. We've got to form it to a perfect circle to go in there, but we can't crimp this. If we crimp it or crease it, then it's done. So the easiest way to do that is to take a little small punch, just smaller than the diameter of the tube it's going into. What we're going to do is we're going to wrap this around here and hold it in place. And it's still a bit of a fight to get it in there. But at least wrapping it around this rod in this manner keeps us from creasing it and distorting it. There we go. So we're going to get it in most of the way. Okay. Keep going. Going to get it majority of the way in. Then we're going to put the remaining piece in here and let it press it the rest of the way. Okay. Looks pretty good there. So I'm going to remove my punch. And we will get the scraper tip. I will insert it here. And we will use the press again to press this into place. There we go. And just like that, we got that completed. All we do for using it, pull it out, turn it around. There we are. We have a scraper. Okay? So give me just a second. Let me get the camera moved and I'll bring you back and we'll show you the two pieces in detail. Okay, everybody. So we are back. As you just saw, we got the two finished products here. We've got the Spartan click pin kit with a piece of cottonwood. A lot of good figure in that piece. Get it up here closer so you can see. Oh yeah, that came out very nice. Very beautiful. It's a smooth operating pin. I'm a fan of this one. I like this pin design. Really good. Feels good in the hand. And then we've got the finished scraper in the acrylic. This was the mother of pearl. And as you can see, our issue that we had with the blowout on there, we were able to recover from it. It was actually up on this end. No sign that it was ever even an issue. And then, of course, this is the closed position. Just give it a little twist and a little pull. Flip it around, reinsert it, and you got a scraper. So, hope you enjoyed that. I had fun. You got to see pretty much in real time, with the exception of some of the sanding. Didn't want to bore you with that, but the rest of it was real time. No skip steps. And you got to see how to recover from a potential disaster. Now, we got lucky on this one. I'm not going to lie. Because sometimes whenever you get a piece that chips out or tears out the way this one did, if the piece that come out, if it goes flying and you can't find it, well, you're pretty well done. And we were able to find, obviously, the larger pieces, get them in there, and then we just had to fill in a small area. So we got lucky on this one, but I wanted you to see sometimes things go wrong. And sometimes you got to think outside of the box to try to recover. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We got lucky in this instance and it worked. So I hope you like this. I hope this was informative for you. Maybe something you'd never seen. I really hope you enjoy it. Again, if you are a subscriber to the channel, thank you very, very much. I appreciate each and every one of you. If you're not a subscriber, I wish you would please consider it. Also, leave me some comments. Share the videos. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. Let your friends know. Trying to grow the channel, and every little bit helps. The more positive feedbacks, likes that I get on it, comments, and folks sharing, the higher it goes up in the algorithm, the more people will see it, and the more we can grow the channel. So again, I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for your time, and have a great day.